am I excited about the fact that pick trades happened, or am I excited that any kind of trade happened after 3 days of boredom? It's an interesting thought piece, but I am going to go with the fact that I like what's happened because A, there was a massive surprise in there, and B, there genuinely are implications. But I'm effectively going to play the role of BS filter between really weird journo analysis of this trade period and between fans going bunter for things that aren't that big of a deal. Let's filter through what's kind of happened so far. So, the Jack Darling and Alex Neil-Bullen trades have gone through. I'm not going to really spend too much time on those, considering I've already done my Darling analysis in my North Melbourne video, which went actually bunter, by the way. So, I appreciate all the North fans and footy fans that have jumped upon there. And the Alex Neil-Bullen one will become part of a post-trade period video that I've got planned. So, I'm going to ignore those and just go to the pick trades here and filter through them. And we're going to answer some key questions. But before we do that, make sure you like the video, subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. We are almost at 3,900, aiming for 4,000 by the end of the year. And in case you didn't know, my second channel, Daz Talks Horror, is launching in November. I know it's weird that it's October and we probably should be doing something before then, but between a very busy work schedule, the fact that I want to throw everything that I can into the remainder of October with everything that's going on with the footy, it just makes more sense there. And by the time next Halloween rocks around, I'll have been doing that channel for a year as I smack my microphone unnecessarily. And we should have some real momentum there. So it is what it is. We're almost at 50 subs already, which is nuts considering I haven't actually made anything yet. But you're going to be getting series rankings, why I love certain movies, why I hate them. Because I'm not a critic, guys. I am a fan. And that's the angle that I'll be bringing to that. So let's ask the first question about the trade period. And that is, why are clubs helping Brisbane? And the simple answer there is self-preservation. Whilst these rules that, yes, Brisbane are going to be able to discount, all of that's going to change next year. As nonsensical as you may think that is, and I am very firmly in the it's bullshit camp. I really am. Whilst the rules are in place, you've got to take advantage of them. So when you ask a team like Richmond, if we start there, you're giving up all these assets and 900 odd points just for pick 20 in a super draft. Richmond, my God, what are you doing? Well, if we retract that trade just for a second, and if we think the Dan Rioli is pick 6 and something else, right? Whatever that something is. Let's say it's not 13 though. Right, Richmond is still going to have an abundance of picks and not the list spots to go with them. So you get the best of both worlds. You're getting 1, you're going to get 6 and more for Rioli. I know the Baker thing, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But you're still going to get picks. You're going to get 2 from Freo. We don't know which 2 they are, but you're going to get 2 of those for Shea. You've already got your end of second round pick there. Pick 20 being brought in just adds to your draft hand. And it makes much more sense for Richmond to put themselves in a controlled state of mind here. It's not, we've got an abundance of picks stretched out across the draft and we need to hope. No, you're going to get on the front foot and you're going to hopefully get the guys that are top of your draft boards as quickly as possible. So I don't mind it. Yes, it helps Brisbane. And from a point differential, it is what it is. But Richmond didn't do this because they wanted, Brisbane to be their friend. And they probably won't bid on Ashcroft at pick 1, which is stupid. And I hate it so much. But again, it is what it is and you've got to live with it. But Richmond are getting something significant out of this. And then for the Carlton deal, you then look at it and go, Brisbane effectively here won this trade. Carlton had to do it out of necessity because when you trade a first and a second round pick, you need to have a second round pick in that draft. So Carlton needed a future second. And the only club that could have given that up that makes any kind of sense is Brisbane. Because they've got the 2 academy kids, they've already got a decent group, or very good group, if you watch my under-21s video, of young players there. The 25 draft is a free hit for Brisbane, effectively. So they needed to do it that way. And the pick 14 for Carlton makes so much sense. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Carlton effectively gave up pick 34 for a second rounder. And if I understand if Brisbane are going to be really good next year, that 34 is going to become 36 again. So you've slid down 2 spots. But again, it's not that big a deal, guys. Yes, Brisbane get the picks. Carlton have to abide by the AFL's rules, which they've done. So both teams there get a tick. You can hate on these teams for helping Brisbane, but they had to help themselves too. Both of them did that. So that kind of sorts that question out. Anything of Gold Coast's 4 academy kids next year that they're going to have to pay for, so they're scrambling for assets next year. Brisbane needed assets this year. You know, to turn around and think that clubs will go, don't help Brisbane, just put them in a deficit and tell them to get stuffed. You got to help yourselves. Both clubs did that. So I actually don't have a problem, and I actually think that 3 clubs, I was going to say 4 then, but Brisbane are in there twice. Carlton, Richmond, and Brisbane all did good things here. So, they're my thoughts on that. And then, let's get to the big one, the big breakdown. Hawthorn trading pick 14 for Carlton's future first and future second, which, if the Blues are a top 4 side next year, is going to look something along the lines of pick 14 and 15 plus pick 32, 33 before academies and father-sons, which next year is not going to be as prevalent as it will be this year. So, I mean, why did Hawthorn do this, in my opinion, is really obvious. But the first thing that I want to talk about here is Carlton, because I think that's really important. So Carlton are now going to have pick 12 and pick 14. And a lot of people at this point think that that's going to be what's required for the Dan Houston trade. And it looks like Nick Austin has come out and said that that's not going to be the case. But what I will say is that it looks like Carlton are definitely having at least 1, if not 2 selections before the Camporeale twins come in. And for me, that is the biggest tick. Like, an amazing tick. Carlton here have done spectacularly well. The fact that they are going into a draft that they feel is really strong. I understand that they're kind of in the window. I get that. But you're going to be able to come out of this draft with an extra midfielder, with an extra winger. That's Ben and Lucas. You're then able to, if they have both 12 and 14, they are going to be able to make some really interesting decisions here. Do they target a tall forward and a tall defender? Do you just go, there's one at either end? I know a lot of people will say the Whitlock brothers, and that's perfectly understandable, but are you able to use those 2 picks there in order to get maybe a Jonty Fall and a Matt Whitlock, for example? There is also, I should say, a report the West Coast could be pick 3 on the table. Now, if it's pick 3 for 12 and 14, if I'm West Coast, I'm telling them to get stuffed. Like, they need more than that. Carlton don't really have more than that, but if we just play devil's advocate here, and don't worry, West Coast, I assure you, none of what I'm about to say after this sentence is disadvantaging you at all. But let's say for some reason West Coast did this. For some reason. I have no idea why they would do this, and they wouldn't, but what do Carlton do with pick 3? Do they take Alexander Taru? Because a midfielder makes no sense. Like, I know they've told Matt Kennedy to move on, but you've got Cripps, you've got Walsh. Doesn't look like Adam Chera's going anywhere. You'd think they're going to keep George Hewitt. Ben Camporeale's going to come in. You've still got Jackson Binns and Cooper Lord. What does a Harvey Langford do in terms of your list build? Because if Harvey goes in there, then all you're doing is effectively telling other clubs, hey, if you want a Jackson Binns, a Cooper Lord, an Adam Chera, you're going to be able to get them relatively cheaper. And there's no really other tall there at this point that Carlton are going to be that interested in. So, interesting. Weird. I don't think Carlton are going to get pick 3. So I think they're going to go 12 and 14. At least one of them is going to be a tall. Like, I would love it if one of them was a key defender. And then you've got some options there. So Jonty Fall's going to be on the table. Harry Armstrong's not going to make it to 12. But if Job Shanahan's around that mark, if Essendon let him go by, Job to Carlton would be pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. Athletically, that would be really cool. The setup of the forward line there. Joe Berry is another one to combine with Motlop and Moyer. Would be really interesting to see. That would be pretty cool. If you don't land Houston, do you go a Toby Travalia? That would be really interesting to do. So the mechanics here for Carlton are not that big a deal. Considering they're going to get Ben, they're going to get Lucas, they're going to get all of these things in here. Next year's draft's not that important. Because if they're seeing this draft as the final bit before they launch, what the hell does the 2025 draft have to do with anything? And like I've said, you're trading pick 14, or you're trading for pick 14, and you're effectively giving up a second round pick for it. Because it's effectively how Carlton are going to see this as a swap. They've swapped pick 14 or better next year for a first rounder this year, and the second is the sweetener. So it makes sense. It just does. Carlton have traded a second round pick in the future for the now. I'm all for it. I really am. So, there's the Carlton bit done. Now let's get to the actual Hawthorn side of things, the West Coast side of things, the Richmond side of things. let's start with West Coast. Now, if you're watching this for the first time, or me for the first time, and you're a West Coast fan, I need you to know two things. One, I'm a Hawthorn supporter. Two, don't click away from this video now that I've said that. Because Matt Clark has done the right thing. They have got a contracted player. You need to pay overs, right? And Matt Clark's gone, we know that Liam Baker's on the table, but we would rather sacrifice Liam Baker in order to get a better deal for Barrass. That's good business. More power to the clubs. I'm all for it. Well done, Matt Clark. Love it. Good on you. Stay your ground. You do not need to give up what you believe is unders. Whether we think it's unders, overs or not is actually irrelevant right now. It is pointless to go, well, he's taking a stand and Barrass is only worth this and they should have taken this and should have taken that. That's irrelevant. Because the only people that can judge Barrass's value is West Coast. And if they believe it's more and they stood their ground, great. Walk Liam Baker to the preseason draft. And if Richmond take him back, you will be okay. Because Harley will, again, hopefully take the jump. I'm an Elijah Hewitt man. You've still got pieces around there that in 3 or 4 years' time are going to be 24, 23, 22 and accelerating the Eagles forward. Already got Jack Graham in there, who can play a half-forward role alongside Noah Long. Ruben Jinby down back. Harley, Elliot Yeo, Tim Kelly in the midfield. Elijah Hewitt will roll through there. Beautiful. Awesome. Love everything that West Coast did there. And then what happens from here? Well, if they get future assets, they'll be able to set up a play for Chad Warner. Harley Reid and Chad Warner in the same midfield is wowzer. And even if that's not the case, West Coast is still going to have assets there. New coach under Minnie McQualter. You're still going to have Harley as a talking point. You're still going to have, hopefully, optimistically, a better year for the Eagles. So future assets for them may make more sense. But we know this draft is going to be good. Do we? I don't care if it's an even spread of talent. The 2001 draft is the best draft of all time. There's still duds in there. So there's no guarantee that pick 14 that then gets on-traded for Liam Baker becomes a superstar anyway. So West Coast have gone, we think it's going to be better for us to have future assets probably. I still think the Barrass deal gets done, by the way. I think it's going to take Hawthorn and Carlton's firsts next year. So instead of pick 14, you're getting hopefully something along the lines of 2 picks between 12 and 18. Okay, and then Tom Barrass and something else is coming back. That's what I think will happen. That's what this deal screams to me. And if Hawthorn give up a first and a second and keep a first round pick, that makes no sense because that's effectively what they said to the Eagles here and West Coast said no. So if the Barrass deal gets done, whether you like it or not, Hawthorn fans, and I'm one of them, you are giving up 2 firsts. We just have to. It makes no fiscal sense as to why West Coast would turn down 14 and a second for Barrass and a future third. It makes no sense for that to happen just for West Coast to go, give us your first next year, give us your second next year. It's the same deal. So that makes no sense. And here's the thing. Let's go to Hawthorn here. Hawthorn did the right thing. West Coast said no. Hawthorn didn't budge, right? They've come up with another plan. They looked after themselves. In terms of Hawthorn fans, they did the right thing. Because if Barrass is coming in, Damien Barrett's sliding doors, Daz's sliding doors. If Tom Barrass gets to the club, then draft picks don't matter. Because Hawthorn with Barrass and battle in, and considering how they finished last year, and listening to Sam Mitchell's best and fairest speech, the Hawks are ready for a flag now. And as soon as you get into that mindset, hello Clarko at Hawthorn if you're listening, draft picks don't mean squat. They don't. They are used as trade pieces. And yes, the Hawks drafted Isaac Smith. And yes, the Hawks drafted Bradley Hill. But Gunston, Burgoyne, Gibson, Lake, these guys cost draft picks. They're not costing as much as what Barrass will, though, Daz, and he's 29. Yeah, guess what? The trade market's changed since then, guys. It's like complaining that, 2 litres of Pepsi Max used to cost us $1.80 and now it's $3.60. Yeah, it did. It's shit that's the scenario that we're in. Don't get me wrong. But I've never seen you walk up to a Woolies employee and gone, that's too expensive, and the worker goes, you're right, let's make it $3. It doesn't happen. You got to roll with the times, guys. Get with it or not. If Hawthorn think Barrass is going to help them win a flag in the next 2 years, even though he's on a 5-year deal, but you're thinking 2 years, right? 2 first-round picks for a flag. If that's the mentality you've got and you're thinking, I can't help you. And if Hawthorn are going to tell us after getting Ginnivan in for peanuts, after getting Marby Chol, who I understand, did not have a good final series. I know that. But he wasn't bad. He did not have a bad season, right? He's a number 2 forward. That happens. Battle or Sicily are going to play forward next year for periods. Cole Shadir is going to grow again. Gunston is still going to be there as depth pieces. The Hawks forward line is going to be better next year. Ginnivan's a year older. Watson's a year older. Dylan Moore's still going to get better. He's not even close to old yet. So the Hawks forward line's going to be fine. Massimo D'Ambrosio for the peanuts that we gave Essendon. The Hawks are thinking to themselves, the time is now. And you're going, yeah, but 2 first-round picks don't guarantee you a flag. Yeah, not getting Barras doesn't guarantee you a flag either. And I am just the guy that would prefer a club, and in this case it's the one I support, take a big swing. Yeah, it'll miss. Right? But believe it or not, Hawthorn don't really lose trades. The Tom Mitchell one does. The Tom Mitchell one, you got Cooper Stevens and nothing really else, and Mitchell won a flag at Collingwood, and Geelong got Ollie Henry, and you got Cooper Stevens. Yeah, that trade on paper is, you're right. Does John Newcomb get 2 runner-ups in the Peter Crimmins medal and wins it if Tom Mitchell's still there? Does Jimmy Warple produce career best footy? Is Will Day a midfielder, or is he just another in a long line of halfback flankers? I would argue no. And before then, what's the last major one? And if you tell me it's the Chad Wingard one, you're wrong. Ryan Burton has not been spectacular in the slightest, and Xavier Dersma is no longer there. So yes, the Wingard trade didn't work out the way you wanted it to, but Hawthorn did not get fleeced, consequentially. They know what they're doing. I've got some gripes about the way we draft in the first round, but that's a whole nother issue. But as far as I'm concerned, Carlton, Richmond, Brisbane, and West Coast have all done the right thing here. And if the club that gets screwed over is Richmond, for Richmond fans, I can understand why that would be annoying. But you're going to get overs, well, perceived overs for Daniel Rioli, but contracted players play more out of him. Your draft's going to be fine. If he's walked to the preseason draft and you don't get something for him, I understand that is not great. But look at what you've got, not at what you could have. And what you're going to have is Adam Uze is going to get the best litany of kids. It's going to be the best draft hand anyone's ever had, not named Gold Coast and GWS. That's the bit you should get excited about. And if West Coast want to walk into the preseason draft, take him back if you're that peeved about what's happened. Because if someone told me Liam Baker's not the kind of guy that would put his heart and soul into everything, I would look at every game he's played in his career and tell you you're wrong. And if he does walk to the preseason draft for free, you deal with it and you move on. But he also got picked 20 and gave up nothing really for it and improved your draft hand anyway. So that's kind of where it stands, right? No one here's really done anything wrong. So can we stop with the whole, well, this club stuffed up? No, they haven't. We're not going to know that until Wednesday. And until that happens and more deals go through, let's calm down. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. Subscribe to Daz Talks Horror if you're a horror fan. I am pumped for what's about to come over there as well. You enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will be back on Monday. What I'm going to talk about, I have no idea, but I look forward to writing it out across the weekend. If it's your birthday today, happy birthday. Give a loved one a hug because they deserve it, and so do you. And look after yourselves, look after each other, and I will see you in the next one.